Good morning, Lexington. Almost lunchtime here. It's 11:03. Kind of weird doing the show 3 hours later from Lexington, Kentucky studios of Adam versus the Man, the Freedom Factory East, if you will, at the home of our friend Jenny Seville, owner operator of the Botany Bay head shops here. I'm sorry, they're not head shops. They're the places you go to get the stuff you need to do the things. According to her very censored radio ads that she runs here in Lexington, Kentucky. We had a great time yesterday at the free speech rally. So shout out to Robert Lauder and Charles Altendorf and James Toller and Ginny for making that happen, and everybody for being there who watched online, and for our awesome crew at Adam versus the Man for porting that into all of you who got to watch it live. So thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed that. And our substitute host, was it Steven versus everybody yesterday? Was that how I think that's how he meant it to go. If it went that way, I'm sure he's happy. I haven't watched it yet. Maybe G.I. Mary Jane and I will be watching that on our flight home later today. But first, before we get into any of the fun, normal stuff we do here on Adam versus Man, we're still catching up from the weekend. We got a Gardenia update. So, Jim, if you would pull up the at the Garden of Freedom Instagram page. Finally, we have some more content up there, but really the cool one there. Look at that. Jim, you should have been there this weekend, man. The wind turbine is up. Joey got to help out, and she took this awesome video of us actually raising the turbine like the flag at Iwo Jima. Do you have that one also there, Jim? It should be I did post both. I posted the video somewhere. Is it not there? Is it there on the Garden of Freedom Instagram? Anyway, cool video. If Jim can't pull it up, you should go find. Oh, there it is. You can go find it for yourself anyway at the Garden of Freedom on Instagram. And Jay Nygaard and his son Kaler is not. Well, Kaler is not in this video because he was operating the drone. So somewhere we have drone footage. We have some really cool background explanation of everything going on here that we recorded with Jay and myself. And I one of the things that was so cool about this for me, I'm going to sidebar personally geek out here on learning home electric. That there were still some critical gaps in my knowledge that he filled in, and one of them was as simple as, "Hey, dumbass, that's supposed to be a dimmer bulb, not a regular bulb." Well, okay, he didn't say it that way. He could have, and it would have been reasonable. And I learned a lot this weekend. So thanks to Jay and Kaler for coming down all the way from Minnesota with their silly accents. Although I think Jay drove from Florida and Kaler, anyway, complicated travel stuff. And Ed, maybe I still got to get the follow up on this story. Ed, who was co-hosting for us today, may have been the recipient of the other wind turbine that Jay had in the back of his truck. Really cool device. Although I got the post and the installation services included with mine. Although I got to say, it was a lot of work. I mean, and it wasn't not the turbine itself. It's just, hey, if you're going to put in a wind turbine, you need a concrete footer to do it right. To have a vibration resistant post, or at least something in the ground that's really solid. And we dug down. For us, it was not a lot of digging because we only got down about 18 inches before we hit bedrock. But even then, making a 3 foot by 4 foot hole, we made it to accommodate. I'll stop. I'm geeking out on details here. We dug a big hole. We poured some concrete in it. We had rebar reinforcement, and then we erected this giant post. Yeah, it was like the flag raising in Iwo Jima. Very cool. A lot of good videos explaining that whole process coming. So Jay should be joining us next Friday. We're going to be having him on, and this was a trade deal, so he gets a review out of it. I'll be reviewing his turbine as well, although I don't really know how. It's there, it's in, it does its job. We got to hook it up still to the electric, and then it'll just be like, oh, yep, it's charging my batteries, and it's blowing. And he came, he delivered it with. It's a little interesting, the way that the magnet generator on a turbine works, or at least this one, is such as 3 variable amp wires coming out of it and if they merge, if you just touch the tips of them together, then it freezes the turbine. It keeps it from spinning because it means that either way it moves, it's generating electricity through the magnets, and when they're combined, they resist each other. Isn't that weird? Something like that. I'm probably getting this wrong. We'll have Jay explain it again next Friday. But yeah, then those 3 wires go in, then they go to a charge control, and that sends juice to your batteries and then to your inverter. And I'll stop because I'm really geeking out on the details now. But this is fun for me. I got this, and he helped me finish the home electric system on the cabin. So we're gonna have a general video update for that soon for the Producers Club. And today, this afternoon, we're flying back. Tomorrow we'll be broadcasting from Vegas, and then back home in Gardenia, finishing up the studio and the cabin. Yeah, they'll not. No, they won't be done today. Today's Tuesday. It's Tuesday, Joey. Yes. All right. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, producer Jim Freedom, give us your updates, please, sir.
What's going on? Loved your speech, by the way. We captured it in great quality here on the show. The video was perfect. We catch you. It was funny how it happened because Steven and Fina were on, and they were talking about something totally random. And I was clicking through my pages that I had, and I went back to the Facebook page to keep looking, and you were just walking up the screen. So I didn't even tell them. I just went back to the StreamYard, took them both off, and put you on. I was like, boom, boom. But right as I was doing that, they literally at that moment were just asking, I wonder when Adam's about to come on, and boom, you were coming on right at that second. So it was like eerie, perfect timing, really cool.
Did everybody have fun with Steven yesterday?
Yeah, it was definitely a great show. It was like a roller coaster. I think he took some callers, and then he took Fina down a road on a suicide talk that she didn't want to be on. there was even a few tears involved. So if you watch the whole show, it was an emotional roller coaster, and it was definitely an interesting watch.
I'm sure we'll get to it later today. That's a great teaser, I guess, if you missed yesterday's show.
There you go. There were tears involved. So as far as promos go, if people want to be cool, they can go to join our Telegram channel, right? We haven't told them about that today. Oops, that's not the right button. We got a public Telegram channel there at the bottom, t.me/Adam versus the man. But as our co-host today is going to bring up a contest. If you win that contest, you don't win access to this public place. You win access to the private Special People's Producers Club on Telegram. So keep in mind when Ed comes on and tells you what the contest is, be ready to participate and get yourself access. But if you don't want to get yourself access that way and worry about winning a contest, you can always just visit the website, adamversusman.com, right there at the bottom of your screen. Click on Patreon. And $10 a month at the Patreon level is what will get you access to the private Producers Club in Telegram. So definitely check that out. Give it a shot. Go back to the website. Check out the shop while you're there too. CJ's put a lot of time into it, put a lot of effort into making a lot of different things available for you to choose from. Everything with the Adam vs. the Man logo or the Freedom logo, or like you can see on this coffee mug, you can get both. Show logo on one side, Freedom logo on the other. Very awesome. Enjoy your morning with us in a Freedom Cup. After that, check out Cigar Federation. That's our affiliate program. Our good buddies over there, they have a great selection of cigars at their website, and you can also use promo code Adam10 to get 10% off your entire order there. So that's a great deal that you should definitely take advantage of. So head over to cigarfederation.com, get yourself some cigars, and that's delicious. Pick your favorite flavor, tag yourself smoking it on Instagram, which we already showed you the Instagram, but one more time, I'll show you the whole page because it's so beautiful. He's got these new pictures up. This is the video right here of them putting the thing up, and this is the picture of them all standing proud of their work afterwards, and they should be excellent. So give that Instagram a check out. Last couple things. Oh, I never brought up the Crypto 6, but we'll get to there. This is the guy. This is the website of the guy who was helping him with that wind turbine he was just geeking out about. So if you have any questions about it or you want to geek out it on your own time, go to gogreenenergyonline.com. Great resource for everything you can imagine trying to go off grid or just give yourself a more self-sustaining lifestyle. So definitely check them out. That's it. You want to bring the co-host up?
Yeah, where's Ed? I'm frozen.
Private first class, reporting for duty.
Welcome, good to see you, Ed. Happy Tuesday. How you doing?
I'm doing real well. I had an outstanding weekend. I worked the gun show in Winslow.
And that's why you couldn't be at our place to be a part of the turbine erection.
That's why I couldn't be there for the turbine and all of that. And I missed Jay, and I still need to connect up with him. He didn't have a poll for me, and I couldn't get one in time. And I don't have the hole dug, so I couldn't take advantage of it now. But I don't know when he's going home yet. I mean, he's still here, isn't he?
I don't know.
I texted him and said, when are you leaving? And he said, not by truck, not soon. So that was the last I heard. I'll get in touch with him and try and work things out, because that looks like a nifty thing.
It's like, is this my place? Like that would be cool. No, and Ed, I think you can appreciate that assuming this works as advertised, and I don't see why not. It seems like a burly piece of gear. We need to get it just put up, and it has the output and the reliability. It's like I need to bring the rest of my power system up to that standard. But out here, it's a really welcome addition for off-grid power, and the way we had it set up, like it was a lot of work. I mean, I don't think maybe me by myself, aside from the erecting part, like, even that, like I could have done everything else in a long day. If I had everything ready in the morning, could have done everything, poured and prepared, but you can't to get it up and level. That would have been 3 or 4 people at least for that, and check the level and get it all adjusted. But it was like 6 of us working all that. We were organizing and learning and doing other projects in and out. But like it really was a good full day of work for the crew there to get that thing up and installed, and 3 foot by 4 foot footer with a nice slab finish on top. So,
yeah,
we did it. And now, you got to come check it out, and we'll see how it works. Get it wired in.
Well, it's critical. I have a 6 battery bank. It's a pretty good size. It'll take a lot of juice, and I have 400, 500 watts coming in during the daytime. But when the sun goes down, you got nothing else coming in. If you want to use the microwave or something else that's got a lot of power draw, it can draw you down. Whereas that wind turbine, maintaining the battery bank at night, is a critical thing to be able to use the microwave for dinner.
Yeah, the point. So like with the system that I've got for this cabin, it's 3 inputs. It's solar, wind, and the generator as a backup. And I've got the generator set up so that I can hit it with a remote control from inside the cabin. It turns on in my shed, and not only does it run my system, it charges my battery.
Right.
That's nice. So with the wind being this being a windy place, at least when it's not sunny, you can count on that. And then to get through the night as well, it's sort of what I've got, I think, is a worry-free system. And you can just say, like, yeah, I don't have to worry about my water not working. I mean, and I don't even, like, I hate to say the fossil fuel backup to the backup, but yeah, if I need to run a generator for a few minutes, I know that I can do anything day or night. No stress, push of a button. Worst case, if it's not already set up, plug and play. And it's not that hard anymore, and it's not that expensive. And you know what? I want to connect this to current events and make this relevant for people. And it's not just me and Ed, as off-gridders geeking out on our systems here, because there is a point to us sort of showing you this. And we're not experts, and we're not rich. And we want off-grid power. How hard is that? And the answer is not that hard, not that big a deal. There's sort of 4 elements you have to understand of a system of solar power panels.
That's my battery bank. That's it.
Charge controller, batteries, inverter, and then that's it. You have your outlets at that point, and whatever you want to do with it is up to you. And with this cabin, I actually, and I'm kind of excited to do the video when it's done, going like, and yeah, the outlets, it works like normal. And if it doesn't work, you push a button, the generator runs for a few minutes, and you turn it off when you're done doing high power stuff, and then your batteries are hurting. You don't think about it at all. Again, that's it. And you can do it. I always like to break it down to like what's the easiest way in, and I love the simple survival Earthship model too. If you have a building that has climate control built in, what do you need for power? You need an overhead light, a water pump, and a place to plug in personal electronics. You can do that for a couple $100 now. And the reason this is like important to connect to current events, energy crisis in Texas. And I know that's like already starting to fade from people's memories, right? But it's the kind of thing Ed and I don't forget, because we go, because every time there's a story like that, we're like, we get to like sit back and gloat and be like, yeah, it's not going to happen to us. So Ed, you remember, the power, did you follow that with the storm in Texas?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That they did that on purpose. These chemtrails that they lay in the sky with the metals are put there so that they can heat up the ionosphere with the HAARP array. Okay. When they heat up the ionosphere with the HAARP array in certain places, they move the jet stream and they bioengineer the weather. And when Texas said, we're thinking about seceding and putting it on our ballot, the powers that be said, oh, hell no, you're not. And we're going to teach you why you're not by giving you an ice storm and shutting down your electricity to where you have to get it from outside sources at $6,000 a kilowatt hour.
I got a couple of huge things I want to ask you about what you just said, but it does raise some important questions because, when I saw that, I was surprised to see the headline right away blaming Texas government, saying they can't be independent for power. Like, it was such an anti-localization spin. To me, that was like a kick in the balls, and I'm like, wait, that's where they went with that? And I get it. Like, it didn't surprise me. But there's definitely some political manipulation related to Texas independence and just, well, I haven't done this for a while, but remember that scene from V for Vendetta with the prime whatever the fuck guy on the screen? Make them remember why they need us, right? You go, yeah. And to the weather manipulation, I am on the skeptical side, not of the existence of weather manipulation or HAARP. Like, we know that this is technology that exists. It's been done. We know it's been studied. We know that the government is doing it. We know that private companies have an interest in doing it and manipulating the weather for crop manipulation, for all the other economic blah, 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 blah. But to what scale? And this is where I'm skeptical, like where I think there's a limit to what, like, as conspiracy theorists, we can say, well, how, because for a while I was skeptical of chemtrails at all as a thing, but then you go, no, there's irrefutable proof this is happening. It's only a question of how big and how bad is it. So what's your take on that? How do you assess that?
Well, I remember, I think it was 2 years ago, I saw that a hurricane was about to demolish the Hawaiian Islands, and the powers that be did not want it to happen, and they used the HAARP and the weather engineering, and I watched them demolish the hurricane before it hit the island. I watched it, and they said, this is what we're doing. You watch this, and I watched it in real time. I'm telling you, I saw it. I know they're doing it. I know it. If they can do it for good, they can do it for bad when they want to, just because they can. That's my take on it.
Do you think there is a good application of this?
Well, I just told you one. They stopped a hurricane from hitting.
Yeah, but is that in and of itself? I mean, even I would say that's well intentioned, absolutely.
Right.
But is it possible to do this in a way that isn't meddling with natural weather patterns, that is inevitably going to have worse consequences for the habitability of our planet?
Meddling with weather patterns. The minute they put up the HAARP, The minute they put up the HAARP array in Alaska and started heating up the ionosphere, they started changing the weather patterns and they shifted the jet stream north. Okay, they did. I know they did.
Okay, so I want to pin you down though on the question of the scope of this, because I see pictures on social media. Oh, look, it's chemtrails. Look, it's chemtrails. Look, it's geoengineering. It's weather manipulation. You go, no, those are contrails half the time.
No.
Is this a global continuous operation that's happening over every major city in America most days, or is this just like every now and then they seed clouds in an area or unseed hurricanes or whatever it is? Like, is it targeted, or is it somewhere in between with testing and long-term manipulation in some limited areas?
There's no discernible pattern to the chemtrail laying that I can tell, because I don't know what their motivations are at any given time, but they do it quite often. I get it over here. I'm out in the middle of nowhere and I still get them overhead, but I don't have it land on me because I'm in the wind. There's a wind tunnel almost that comes from out of out of Utah down through the Grand Canyon and kind of makes a turn. It goes down Long Valley, which I'm in, and goes across Springerville and then on to New Mexico. That's why I have such great wind generation capability where I am, because it goes continuously through the Grand Canyon. I mean, it blows quite a lot. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to get that up here. But I see it up here, but it doesn't land on me. By the time it starts dissipating and falling, it's blown out somewhere else. When I lived in Phoenix, I had so much problem with growing things, growing food, and I planted apple trees in the front, okay? And the chemtrails and everything got so bad that the last 2 years before I moved up here, my apples didn't produce anything. I was getting 80 to 100 pounds of apples a year out of these trees. In the last 2 years, I got not one apple. And I believe that's from the barium, the strontium, and the aluminum specifically that are in the chemtrails that fall down on our plants. The only way I could grow any kind of lettuce or tomatoes or anything like that is once I planted them, I had to put covers across the top so nothing would fall on them.
That's the more disturbing effect of this, isn't it? The pollution.
Yes.
Yes,
because we're breathing it. We're not supposed to have aluminum in our systems. It builds up in our systems. It builds up in our brain. Our system can't pull it across the blood-brain barrier, and it creates more and more dysfunction and autism and your dementia and all those things. That's why I don't drink regular water. I don't drink the regular water here. The water that I drink, I buy at Costco at the distribution center for the lowest price I can get it. I drink Fiji water. I drink water from the aquifer in Fiji. It has natural silicates in it that will ease the blood-brain barrier and allow the body to remove toxins from the brain, and it clears my thinking out to where I can think clearly. I don't drink any water. Other than that, it has a high magnesium content, and magnesium is what the synapses of the brain use to allow the electrical conduit into our memories. Okay,
why not drink cheaper purified water and take those as supplements?
It doesn't have the silicates in it. Since this is from a volcanic aquifer, it has natural silicates in it that will ease the blood-brain barrier, and it allows my body to remove the metals and toxins from my brain. I've drank 3 liters the first day, 2 liters for 5 days afterwards, and I drink 1.5 liters every day since then, and it keeps my system clean. I have a clear thought. I am lucid, and I'll tell you what, I'll debate anybody. Adam, I hereby challenge you a debate sometime in the future, okay? You've written a book on freedom. I have reviewed this book, and I have written a critique that I have in my possession you don't even know about, okay? I hereby challenge you to a debate, because I believe that there are many points in your book where you confuse freedom with liberty. I'm in the process of writing a companion book to yours.
Not an ethical disagreement, an analytical and rhetorical and perspective framework on differentiating the terms freedom and liberty. You're still in agreement with the ethical premises of the non-aggression principle and self-ownership as the foundation of this book, correct?
I'm on your side, Adam. I'm with you 100%. Okay. But there are nuances in there. There are nuances in your book where you confuse freedom and liberty. Okay.
Well, we should have this discussion because it's something that actually in writing the book we put a lot of thought into, and more as messaging than necessarily philosophical precision. And that's not really true. I mean, I guess we came up with the term. It was to maintain both of those. To be philosophically true and accurate, and within that restriction have the most broad, understandable messaging to represent that, and that's why I thought the term freedom is. I think I deliberately used a definition of freedom that sort of umbrellas liberty. Does that make sense?
Oh,
And I think that might be a simplification, but I think that was like the choice in messaging. But even within that, there's a huge conversation to be had. But I want to go back to we'll do that. No, we'll do that. But I want to go back to the homesteading and the living independently and the mentality that goes along with that, because it doesn't have to necessarily be. Oh, by the way, Fiji should hire you as a spokesperson, because holy shit, that's like the best. Like, I thought you were like, I will debate you on your water choice any day of the week, and you should go to Costco and get Fiji for the lowest price you can because of silicates and magnesium and volcanic. And you're like, dude, fine, fucking drink Fiji water. You're like, okay, I'm pretty conscientious about that, but my answer is basically drink simple water and take a lot of supplements. But I get well water. Locally sourced well water that I filter myself on my property, so that's and truck it in. So that's pretty cool for now, although not ideal. I want to get a well, but they're expensive, or figure out evaporative water generation, and that's a whole other conversation we're gonna have to come back to when we get maybe we have more time to get into nerding out on homesteading, but focusing on the weather issue and alternative energy being accessible in the story in Texas as motivation to connect this, to make this relevant for people. We're not talking about shit that's like just our personal lifestyle fantasy. Even if you live in an apartment, if that's how you want to live, having this consciousness makes your life better, makes you safer and less vulnerable to this kind of manipulation. But it's also, as a matter of conscious consumerism, not paying an electric bill every month that's getting taxed. If you have two choices as a consumer, and all other things being equal, one of them, 10% of what you pay goes to government. On the other, 100% of what you pay goes to, private company or someone you choose to do business with, and none of it goes to the police state. None of it goes to the war, or, military-industrial complex, the war machine. And none of it goes to the surveillance state or political bullshit or just fraud, waste, and abuse. It's not contributing to those evils of the world. Why not go with that one? But all other things aren't equal. Like, you think about how much are people paying and the price gouging that was going on in Texas and a lot of other places this winter, right when the stimulus checks were coming out. I mean, it was all kind of, I think it came out right after. And I'm thinking, where is that like, oh, it's great. Government gave us, borrowed $20,000 in my name and gave me $1,400 back. Well, it's better than a kick in the ass. But it's compared to where that money should be going, or where we think of it as going. A lot of it went to paying increased gas prices. A lot of it went to catching up on utilities. A lot of it went to just bills, cell phone, child support, alimony, legal fees, getting caught up on driver's licenses. I don't do that anymore. Vehicle registration, I don't know what that's about. But, there's like all of the, taxes, bills like, but you think about all the money went back to the man, or at least maybe not all of it. I know pet shops have done well recently. Like Jenny's here, like the Bonnie Bay. Maybe she'll join us at the end of the show. But a lot of that money, like the government gave it to the people, knowing that the situation was engineered for a lot of them for it to go right back to the man. And in Texas, I'll bet a big chunk of it was people catching up on electric bills. And I just want to scream at people, like, for the amount that you are paying for home electricity in 3 months, you could have a functional off-grid power system at your house. And you go like, yeah, less than 1,000. You want to run, I mean, you reduce your needs at first and you can get independent in with what you're paying. I mean, and maybe it's unreasonable to ask Americans to cut down on their energy consumption just a little bit, right? But to even get like a fully functional, what you have in the average American home today, a few $1,000s will get you that, you know. And even if you want to include a generator in it that you use regularly for power, it's going to be a lot less than you're paying for your electric bill. And that, you know, you got to have the foresight, and you got to, you know, invest up front. You got to, the things, you can't be transient. And that's, well, I take that back, because there are portable systems now, right? It'll power a house.
Well, a lot of people don't understand the basic function of residential solar if done to the advantage of the consumer instead of to the advantage of the power company. Okay. The way they do it now, it's done to the advantage of the power company. If the consumer wants to set up his residential solar to where it's to his own advantage, he puts vastly more solar panels on his home that he needs, and he hooks it up to the grid. During the day, his home generates all this power and he only uses this much of it, and the rest of it goes back into the power company and they hold it. Then at night, when his panels aren't generating any power, he can draw back some of what he put in there, and then he'll use maybe this much power, and all the rest of the power that it got put in there that he didn't use gets written up as money, as a check, because they sold it to somebody else that needed it at the end of the month. And instead of paying a power bill, you get a check every month for the power you generated.
Sounds like a sweet deal. But isn't there something that's preventing people from, when you live in a zoned area, from just cutting the cord to your grid electric and saying, I'm just going to have an independent system and put batteries in my garage?
Well, you can, but you're going to have to buy the house next door and fill it with batteries to hold all of the energy that you're going to create, because it's a lot. I mean,
you mean the oversized subsidized panels that they do? They're like the whole side of roof. I was kind of surprised, and even that's coming down. Solar power efficiency, like on the roof of my cabin, the solar panels take up like a tiny spot, and I have 4 250s, and that's more than enough there.
Okay, this weekend at the gun show, a gentleman came up from Mesa, Arizona, up here, and was doing a couple of things, and he works solar. He does solar for a living, right? We started talking with him and everything, and the first thing he asked me is, how new are your panels? And I told him, well, I got Coleman panels. They're, you know, barely a year or two old. He says, because there are new panels now that are so sensitive that they pick up the albedo reflection of the moon at night and generate power at night. And it's like, you've got to be kidding me. He said, oh, no, we got panels that'll do that. And he's coming out. He's coming out now and going to talk to me and my neighbor about these newer panels. And we got a lot of room. I mean, I got 5 acres. I got 5 acres. If I can put panels everywhere and then connect it to the system, this is going to be just nothing but a giant power generation system, because before I got the property, I got the the government readouts when they came and tested it for wind generation, because I got wind farms right near me. I mean, 10 acres full of wind things just continuously turning all day and night, because we're in that. It was so good at 80 and 100 meters that they went back and tested 120 and 150 meters. And they said, all the way up, you got wind production. As much as you put up, you're going to just power. So I'm in the right spot. Hey, man, we could take up the whole show on this.
So what's your comment contest today?
You ready for your contest?
Hit me.
This was my father, Feliciano John Vallejo Jr. God rest his soul. Okay, he was awarded the Silver Star with the 82nd Airborne in Korea. I mean, he was a decorated veteran. He worked in the aerospace industry all of his life in Southern California. He made money hand over fist. I mean, he never had anything that he needed. He was richer than all get out, and he worked decades and decades and decades in the aerospace industry. Now, all of that time, he put money into Social Security. Okay, Social Security. President Ronald Reagan says the most dangerous sentence in the world is, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help." Okay, this man here paid in millions of dollars into Social Security, and when he passed away, he worked up until the week he died. He worked until the week he died. When they paid us off, when they paid my brother and I, he had $13,000 in accrued overtime that he hadn't collected. I mean, this guy paid millions of dollars into Social Security, and when he died, my mom had died before him. I'm his oldest son. Do you think I got any of that money? Hell no. They screwed me out of my inheritance. Okay? The government screwed me. The contest today is the government has screwed us all. And whoever comes up with the biggest screw story, whoever was destroyed by the government the most, gets membership in our club today.
Well, I don't mean to go dark all of a sudden on you with that, but there are a lot of people who aren't around today to tell their dark stories about getting screwed by government. So, in memory of all of them, I think we should take some COVID vitamins before we start the next. Before we get to our COVID block, Ed, there's one more thing to point out on the weather topic from our producers club. Mr. Liberty shared a story from mypatriotsnetwork.com. Jared James, February 19 this year. So going back a little bit to the middle of the Texas blizzard, Texas snow that doesn't melt.
Right.
Weather modification technology. Did you catch that part of the Texas story before?
Yeah, I saw some of that. I saw some of the videos where people are trying to melt it, and it was some of it was catching fire. You know,
did they test it and go, okay, there's metals in this, and that's what's causing it?
I didn't see any forensic testing.
Because someone's got to do some follow up on this. I mean, if it's that obvious, there would be, because they're going, look, there's widespread people fucking with their snow with fire, and it's not melting. But then the next level of confirmation by now would be, all right, well, test it. It shouldn't be that hard to figure out how to test it at home, or put it in a jar and let it melt slowly. I mean, it does melt eventually, right? Or not at all. I mean, I'm watching the video on screen right now for the first time, and it's like snow that is charring with a candle. I don't know if that's like a normal trick though. Does like snow normally do? I don't think snow normally does that.
No, it melts.
Well, I've never done that with snow. But then you would melt it.
Heat will drip ice. Yes,
it should drip. It should at least be dripping like right away, right?
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, your contrails argument, it took me 8 months watching the sky, but I finally got it. I have a video that shows a plane with a contrail and a plane laying a chemtrail in the same video. And it's
I know. I'm not saying that everything up in the sky is just a contrail and there's no chemtrails. I'm not saying that. I will say though that there are people who do get a little carried away with the chemtrail hype and go, "Oh, look at that cloud! I think that's really a chemtrail." And it's like,
Yeah.
you're kind of discrediting everybody's trying to look at this seriously.
No, when it's going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and they're smaller when he lays them, and they get wider and wider and wider as it goes along. It's like it's pretty obvious.
Yeah. No, I've seen that too. I know that is a thing that happens at least at a wide enough spread level that it is well beyond what government is admitted to. It's just the question really is just like, how much of a priority is this? You know, and it's funny because we don't talk about it much because it's just there and it's not like in the news very often, and it's pretty secretive and there's probably not a lot of development except, hey, when it happens, that probably was the product of, like, you look at Texas and you go, probably, but do you know 100% decisively? I would say not until you see these snow samples tested and end up with you know, a pattern of where metals were detected. If it was that, we'll have that. But if it's something horrifically common that's leading that really is having a measurable widespread health impact, then this needs to be much higher of a priority. You know, if this is like you mentioned that metals and breathing aluminum, oh, that's not good for people, really? Oh, shocking, right? No, but if it's at the scale at which it's a measurable pollutant that's having a significant impact on human health, then it needs to be a much higher priority for all of us as activists to say, you know what, let's force government to really admit the scope of this.
I'm sorry, you made me laugh when you said let's force government.
Yeah, right. Yeah, well, I mean, it's, you know, typical libertarian fantasy, right? I mean, I'm not the first one to say that, am I? All right. And so I'm gonna take my my COVID vitamins now, and then we'll dispense some misleading medical information. Our COVID block. We got a grab bag, and then we're gonna end today's show with a drug war update and some good news about cannabis. But until then, Ed will be watching your comments, getting them on screen. And here we go. Welcome to the COVID block. All right. Excuse me. Already on screen, Patrick Lewis, I've seen rainbow reflectant chemtrails. Yeah, it's a thing. Not so much at our place. It's one of the things I love about Gardenia, just that area. It's pretty windy, low population. Like, not a lot of reason to manipulate the weather around our place anyway. But yeah, we started today's COVID blog with some misleading medical advice about don't worry about COVID. Because if I told you don't worry about COVID, this video would get censored on YouTube. So we'll just go to Gallup, who says this headline: Americans worry, and this Americans apostrophe, Americans worry about catching COVID-19 drops to record low. Not an Americans, American S apostrophe. Journalism is like, there's a lot of weird shit like this. If you read headlines as much as the thing is, this was the top headline on Drudge Report today. I didn't pull this out of my ass. I didn't go like dig this out of the Gallup archives. This is top of the mainstream news. Americans worry about catching COVID drops to record low. Excuse me, COVID-19. Remember when we used to call it Corona? Yeah. Remember when hugs were good for you and bad guys wore masks? All right, story highlights: 35% of Americans are worried about catching COVID-19, down from 49%. Now, that's such like sometimes these questions like I think you get to sort of like de-engineer this, and it's kind of a weird line that they force you to take one or the other. Like, are you worried about catching COVID-19? Like, I'd like to think I'm among the least worried about it overall, but I can still say yes, I am worried. I have insignificant, but does it qualify? It makes me ask all these weird, like I have to be intellectually precise and hypothetically answering a survey that nobody's asking me any about anyway. But no, then if someone said, "Are you worried about catching COVID-19?" You know, of the sort of COVID hysteria skeptics, I'm really among the most conservative in talking about, COVID it's a thing. But we did some interesting math on this last week. If 40,000 people die every year from the flu, and let's say even their number is, or Americans, excuse me, not what an asshole I am. Holy shit. I just implied that if you're not an American, you're not a person. Whoa, whoops. Did I use that kind of statist nationalist language? At least I caught myself. But the official number of dead Americans with COVID now is like 500,000 something, right? And you got to recognize that that's hugely exaggerated, overreported, inclusive of a lot of people who died with, not from COVID, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. But if you got rid of the flu, like waited a generation for herd immunity to go away, and then reintroduce the flu, you go, well, the average American lives 80 years roughly, 40,000 a year. You multiply that out, that's over 2 million. You go, well, yeah, it'd be a lot of people. And even if you just think about, well, 40,000, if it was 10 years worth of flu deaths, it would be on scale with COVID, if they say that's true. But I'm more of the belief that it's no more than really half at best. It's that I can even give credibility to that, like hypothetically, what they're blaming COVID for is at most half, and that of what they're saying. And so many of the premises of it are wrong to begin with. But if it's only half as bad as what they're saying, I think it's a lot. Really, most likely a lot less. Somewhere between a tenth as bad as they're saying and half as bad as they're saying. Really rough subjective assessment, I know. So let's get back to Gallup's hard numbers, shall we? Because this is where it's important. 35% of Americans are worried about catching COVID-19, down from 49%. 77% say the COVID-19 situation in the U.S. is improving, up from 60%. 64% report at least a fair amount of disruption to their lives, down from 70%. So at the same time, Americans' satisfaction with the rollout of the COVID-19 vaccine has surged. Their concerns about getting the virus and about the availability of coronavirus tests and hospital services / treatments have fallen to record lows. 35% of U.S. adults now say they are very or somewhat worried about contracting COVID-19, the lowest point in Gallup's trend since April 2020. Now, there's something huge about making this the main headline for today. Not for me, but for Drudge, putting this front and center for the mainstream media, going, yeah, we're not, look around, we're not really doing this COVID thing anymore. We're not, no. And the thing about, it really is fading. And I wish I could say I predicted this, because when something like this starts, and this reminds me to a year plus when we were looking at this, and we remember we did the flatten the curve of tyranny, and like all the ways that government power is increasing, coming down, and we really need to get the whiteboard going in the studio and bring back the curve of tyranny and do an updated analysis on this. But when you're looking at this from the beginning, the main curve that we drew was that it was going to fade out. It wasn't like there wasn't going to be a drop off. Government, you give them this, government's not going to just let their power go. I mean, I did predict the government power would kind of come down in chunks by means of policy, because that's how it works. But I wish I could have put the words on it back then. Maybe I did. I got to go look at the tapes, right? But we said it would fade into the background. I don't think I said fade into the background, but that it would become something sort of like, yeah, you'll have the cold viruses or the cold, class of whatever, and then the flu viruses and variants, and then you'll have corona, and it'll just be like another thing. You get your annual shot. But like this idea of wearing masks, even, this is accelerating just some natural things in human progress of germ awareness, of hygiene and health in general, and that's a good thing. But I don't. I hate to be sort of cynical. Not all of it's going to stick. You're going to go back, but the bigger trend of humans being more health conscious in general, is this good for it or bad for it? what is the legacy of this episode known as the first COVID season? Because that's like we're gonna like at some point that's what we're gonna call this, like the first COVID season, right? So, Mediaite just in, Biden to announce every American to be vaccine eligible 2 weeks earlier, tout 150 million shots in first 75 days. And with the whole vaccine rollout, oh, well, it's effective 90%. Well, no, look, all these people got the shot and then got COVID still because there's a mutation. Like, they could keep this going. And when I say fade into the background, I think we got to work to still squash this thing into the background, not just like let it fade into the background, but really actively, now that this racket has been largely exposed, that people are sick of it, that we're pushing back, that we keep pushing and saying, no, fuck you, you're not going to make me wear a mask. If I'm not a sensitive area, there's no reason to. Like, it's not even hypothetically reasonable. If your vaccine works, you get the vaccine. I'll take the risk of not. You can take the risk of having the vaccine. I'll take the risk of not having the vaccine. That's going to be respected. It's not going to be something restrictive. But there is going to be this still lingering excuse, like Cartman going back to the original South Park COVID special, walking around the 6-foot post with a flag on. Stay away from me. I'm like, okay, there's still going to be people. I wear a mask. There's still going to be petty tyrants going, no, hygiene awareness in my area. You will use hand sanitizer and wear a face shield or for work, and for people in the food service and customer service industry. This is going to be with a lot of y'all for a long time, and it's going to suck. I think that's pretty safe to say. It's a pretty safe prediction at this point. But even the vaccines, there's this narrative where they kind of shot the main narrative in the foot, right? Of, oh my God, there's this big bad new virus. It's out of control. We need to lock down and shut down and keep going. But they don't really want that long term. They want exploitation. They want the manipulation. Sort of it's a smash and grab, reconsolidation of wealth and power. But you don't. If you smash and grab, you don't stay around. And when they come to pick up the glass, just keep beating them up. No, you let them fix up their shop and get more inventory so that you can do another smash and grab later. Or in this case, just go back to collecting taxes directly from their register, because if they don't, they lose their licenses or go to jail. That's a pretty good gig they've got going. They want to keep that going. And there's, I've been in my general analysis of government a little more attuned, especially internationally, to if this is happening, the powers that be want this to happen, or at least are allowing it to happen. And rarely is that not at least worth considering. And so this whole engineered crisis, it's like smash and grab. How much can we get away with? Oh shit, they're coming. Let's get out of here before they come and shoot us, right? And it's like we got this whole exaggerated hoax around, what is a essentially normal recurrence in the great global petri dish of the human family. And then, we retreat as they make us, but we're going to drag out what we can. All right. Healthy disrespect for authority, healthcare needs to divorce government. Isn't that a nice fantasy? Bloomberg via MSN.com, EU sees near virus immunity by end June amid Astra doubts. And I looked at this headline like, oh, they're really letting this get out. The European Commission has told governments the COVID vaccine rollout could hit a key target earlier than expected under new projections that hinge on people accepting AstraZeneca PLC's shot. The European Union's executive arm says most member states will have sufficient vaccine supplies to immunize the majority of people by the end of June, according to a memo circulated to national delegations in Brussels and seen by Bloomberg. The forecast assumes some 70 million inoculations with Astra's vaccine this quarter, but that goal could be at risk if regulators put restrictions on the dose. So there's this narrative of, well, we have the vaccine, everything's okay, but at any time it might not apply to a variant or a mutation. You might have to get another vaccine or blah, 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 blah. Mike Freeman, you don't fight an outbreak by quarantining the healthy. Well, there's one nice thing to remind people of. So with the vaccine coming out, we have the major shot in I don't say the shot in the arm. No, we have the hole in their narrative that really is going to make it hard in the future for them to ever mandate the kind of forced unemployment crisis that they did. And as I said before, the worst that they could ever do, even with this medical tyranny in this day and age, I mean, in this level of consumer product availability and manufacturing capacity, the worst they can do is bully us into bubble boy world, right? To make us all wear hazmat suits outside the house. And it's like really, and they could, right? Like they could, and I've said this I remember saying this like a year ago, that like, if it goes that way, it's not just, you will wear suits, or they go, you will quit your job because there's a virus, and you go, no, I won't, because I have a bubble boy suit and I can go out safely and not infect anybody. So there, government. No, it's like there's a very long, drawn out, painful, ugly, multi-step process for that basic narrative to play out, if that basic narrative ends up describing what happens. But right now, because so now it's the vaccines and it's the masks and the bullying. And honestly, like, as a libertarian, as much as I'd be against it, if the rest of the world says, no, Adam, you want to play in the dirt in Gardenia, you're going to wear a hazmat suit when you're on anybody else's property, if you're going to basically, and I'm like, all right. If I got to snap my finger, like, it's the same thing with masks. I hate to be a moderate about masks by libertarian standards, but if someone says, I'm not gonna, I'll wear a mask to not make someone else's job more difficult if it's a legitimate job and it's just bullshit that they're dealing with under duress. I'm going to assert my rights up to the point that I'm not going to scare people. If someone says, no, I'm grandma and I'm terrified that you gotten out and not, washing your hands and coughing around me, is all right. Hey, if I really need to hang out with that crazy grandma, I'll put a mask on to hang out with her, at her request. But when we have the ability with just manufacturing capabilities in China to make a hazmat suit and a bubble breather, whatever, like, that, and cheap, it's not an unreasonable hygiene request if there were to be a real threat. Which means, and this is the good news in this, is getting kind of dark, dystopic here, but the good news in this is that even if at this point in human history of that manufacturing availability, if they came at us with, well, now we've got the really bad virus, and now it's serious. Now maybe it's engineered. I don't know. Maybe it's natural. Could be either. But if we get like, it's COVID-19, some people have said it's a warm up for the next thing. Well, if they come at us with the next thing, I mean, not only do we kind of know how to resist, but we know how to beat whatever it is, even if that's to the standard of how do we beat it is how do we maintain our normal quality of life and hygienic distancing and manage our interactions with other people. And while as a libertarian now I see what's happening in the mask mandate as like a gross government imposition, you think about, I think about condoms, right? Like how technology has empowered us to manage our, unhygienic exposure to other human beings much better than in a state of nature. Washing our hands, kind of a big, you shake hands with somebody, you shake hands with everybody they've ever shaken hands with since they last washed their hands. Well, there was a time in human history where washing your hands just wasn't really a thing if you go back far enough. Yes, we've always had rivers and blah, 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 but like washing your hands with soap to like, really clipping your nails to not be carrying around like all of that shit, brushing your teeth on a regular basis, like this is new. All of this is new. Wearing masks is the dumb way we're doing it badly right now with government mandates. But overall, it's a positive thing, that hygiene consciousness, that, and I'm not for avoiding human touch and contact and exposure and being reasonable about it. And I consider myself a victim very personally of that hyper safety culture, because I have allergies still to this day. And I think it was because I was raised in a typical American middle-class home in the 80s, where, you know, my mom was like, you know, we're not going to let our kids play in the dirt. You know, or the house is going to be hygiene. You know, you're not, and I think the human body works better still with that exposure to nature, but we get smarter about it. And we get better at doing that in a thoughtful, deliberate way. So speaking of that, crazy shit now on the medical frontier. Herald, I should say really just back to the COVID blog, Herald Mail Media, some COVID-19 patients get a second shot at life thanks to lung transplants. Greg Borden. Anyway, there's this, I'm not going to get into this story, but there are people like, and I wonder, you know, how much of this is fake or exaggerated, because it could be something crazy like that. But this is, they're actually down from the year before in lung transplants. There's so much weird stuff to this story. There's one of the ones I gotta be like, if you really want to entangle this knot, you got to read it for yourself. But here's a little sample. In 2020, doctors performed 2,539 lung transplants in the U.S., according to data from the American Lung Association, down from the 2,714 performed the year before. The decline is likely a result of hospitals limiting and delaying procedures to preserve resources when the pandemic began. No, it's not just that. Yeah, it's a lot of the manipulation there, and this is one of those unintended consequences that people who put off, potentially life-saving operations ended up in much more desperate situations later. Healthy disrespect again. There are doctors BitChute saying that the shot will make the recipients way more vulnerable to future viruses and permanent carriers of 19. Excuse me. Sounds like a realistic possibility, but one of those things you got to wait to see. And that's wait to see. If you have any reason or any inclination for work or for even people in your family to get the COVID-19 shot, please just wait. Be smart about it. Like my bottom line argument against getting the vaccine is not even. I mean, I feel like such a moderate wimp of a libertarian today, but I'm not even saying don't get the vaccine, because I will say if you are in a particular circumstance, like the vaccine is like, what's the worst you can say about the vaccine? It's toxic. It's a risk to your health. Like, is it well, no, there are some out there theories that are saying like, no, man, in 6 months we're going to find out if we got the vaccine, we can't make babies, or your babies are like,
it takes years of peer review.
But that just bolsters my one argument. Yeah. But again, like, hey, if you don't want to have kids, right, and you've researched the vaccine, and it's going to make your job easier or your life easier, and like it's not that big a deal. I'm not here to fearmonger on the vaccine. You know, there's some possibilities, but again, my primary argument here is just fucking wait if you can. Just wait. Just can you like wear a mask? Like if you can work. If your work gives you the option, hey, get vaccinated or wear a mask, I say wear a mask. Like if you have to submit to one thing or the other, or if you have to make that compromise for your job, chemicals in your body that we don't really understand the full effects of versus wearing. Well, I said this in my speech yesterday because they were asking me, we're gonna have to do this again today flying. But like I have two masks. One that Joey gave me is a little more stylish. No, but I have my dorky little plain white one. What's this compact glue? Scrape my lungs when I die. It took me a second to get that. Yeah, but no, I have so when I'm like on the plane, I got my chin diaper on. And so I'll be like, okay, I'm sipping my drink now. You thought I was just having a smoothie this morning. Oh, this is an important prop for the show.
Oh no, it's
okay. So I'm sitting there like, and this is, Joey, this is our plan for flying today. So we're gonna have like sippy drinks.
We have to take 3 smoothies each on so we can be inactive.
But even so the stewardess, and by bad luck, we were in front of like a stewardess facing us. I guess the rest of you only have to worry about them like when they come by every now and then. They'll be like, I see you. Because I'll just sit there like it's like I'm breathing. We're doing this symbolically, right? You don't really need me to cover my nose. I just need to play along like everybody else, right? No. Cover your nose, sir. You cover your nose. So I do this and then go. And I'm so ready for someone to say, "Hey, wait, why would you take your mask off to cough?" Well, I'm not gonna cough into my mask. That's gross. Why would I do that? And cough into my elbow like you're supposed to. We've always been supposed to, but according to CC guidelines that everybody's aware of on how to cough now. Rob B says, it's not Rob B. I think I got
smoothie seeds.
No, it's my hair. I have hair now that gets in places. But no, I thought it was a mask fiber, but it was my own hair. So now to Yahoo. And this is a national correspondent for Yahoo News, Alexander Nazarian. And the Hygiene Theater, CDC, says, oh, really? Even the CDC? It's time to unplug the sanitizing robots and put away the bottles of Clorox that seem to line the entrances to every school, restaurant, and supermarket wanting to advertise its safety protocols. While such protocols may be reassuring to an anxious populace, they are not necessary, says a revised guidance issued on Monday by the CDC. Finally, it's official that this is dumb. But let me propose a counter narrative here behind the scenes to this. Is that all the people who were like funneling money to the right channels to like get this whole thing going, there were all these hygiene manufacturers. There's all the like Purell companies and whoever's behind the hand sanitizers, the big one. But Clorox disinfectant wipes, like those stocks went through the roof, right? Everything that was popular for sanitization was a major part. Just like, the vaccine, it was like, where did people, like at some point we're going to get to do an accounting of this thing and go like, how many suicides, how many extra deaths because of this, but it's also going to be how much money was spent on Hygiene Theater, how much money was spent on the vaccines, how much money was spent then on dealing with health consequences from the vaccine, and then ultimately how bad was the virus itself, teasing that apart with a little hindsight and better data. But this part, here's my proposed counter narrative is that the people behind the scenes who are funneling money to the propagandists on behalf of the sanitization products companies had some disagreement or stopped paying their share, and they said, hey, if you don't stop paying your share, we'll tell people to relax when it comes to the hygiene theater. Oh, envelope was a little light this week. So, hey boys, time to tell the American people to relax. Yeah, so maybe that's where the hygiene theater is going. Fox 5 New York public health experts urge Americans not to skip second vaccine dose. Those people are still, you see who's really getting paid off, right? Yeah, it's the pharmaceuticals, big pharma stepping in here. And the funny thing is that there is a significant wave of people not taking the second dose. The United States is now averaging more than 3 million vaccine shots every day, even as the program is accelerating. New cases are stubbornly still on the rise. Side effects coming with the second dose of the Moderna and Pfizer vaccines have increased so-called vaccine hesitancy. Some people, in other words, sanity. Some people are even hoping to get away with it. Yeah, that's what they call it now. Sanity? Critical thinking? No. You have a bad case of vaccine hesitancy. Some people are even hoping to get away with just one shot, but the National Institutes of Health is warning against stopping at one dose. When you just leave it at one dose, the question is, how long does it last? Dr. Anthony Fauci, the director of NIAID, said. And when you're dealing with variants, you're in a tenuous zone. Dr. Paul Offit, the director of what he's saying to translate, hey, vaccine companies, if you give me enough money, I'll tell people that they need to get COVID shots every year forever. Yeah, that's where we're at with this. Now, we have some resistance stories. We go now to a really fun video. If you haven't seen this, strap in. 2 minutes and 20 seconds. We get this from Jack Posobiec on Twitter. I don't know where he got this, but we should credit the church behind this. But his tweet is breaking. A Polish pastor just threw out the police who tried to shut down his church in Calgary, Canada. So if it sounds a little polite and the accents are funny, it's a Polish Canadian. Yeah, I can make a lot of jokes about that, but we'll just roll the tape.
Please get out. Get out of this property. Immediately get out. Get out of this property immediately. Out. I don't want to hear anything. Out of this property immediately. I don't want to hear a word. Out. Out. Out of this property immediately until you come back with a warrant. Out. 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 Out of this property. Immediately out. Immediately go out and don't come back. I don't want to talk to you. Not a word. Out of this property. Immediately out. I don't care what you have to say. Out. Out. Out of this property, you Nazis. Out. Out. Gestapo is not allowed here. Immediately, Gestapo is not allowed. Out. Do you understand English? Get out of this property. Go. So go. Go. And don't come back without the warrant. Out, Nazi. Out. Out. You understand? Nazis are not welcome here. Out. And don't come back without the warrant. Do not come back without the warrant. You understand that? You're not welcome here. Nazis are not welcome here. Gestapo is not welcome here. Do not come back, you Nazi psychopaths. Unbelievable, sick, evil people. Intimidating people in a church during the Passover. You Gestapo, Nazi, communists, fascists. Don't you dare coming back here.
Oh man, this is absolutely beautiful and brilliant to see that kind of pure resistance. And I want to say things you can get away with saying only with the Polish Canadian accent, just the way that, but anybody can do that. Anybody can do that when the legal grounds on which they're even doing this are so tenuous. It is like compared to, like, I compare this to war. Say, hey, this is good. If this is the worst that government can do, is this medical tyranny. It's not, people getting, blown to bits all over the place, right? That's progress for humanity. But even on the legal grounds that they're enforcing this, it's very soft powerage. And as bad as this may be as a new form of government tyranny, I still want to take encouragement from the way this is happening and what it shows about the larger state of human progress, where it's a kind of mind control. It's a kind of manipulation through fear and propaganda and exaggeration and false peer pressure. We know that our social media has been heavily censored this past year, especially around the issue of the coronavirus and the vaccines and everything else around that. And one of the effects that we take for granted in all of that, and this is why, and again, the human connection that we're being denied. Stay in your family zone. Stay, in your little viral bubble. Cootie, family germs, family cooties. That's okay, but don't share with anybody else, right? Well, if you comply with that, you have given up one of your main ways to challenge that you're the only one who doesn't want to do that. You just don't get to check in with your neighbors anymore. And yeah, okay, you can still call. There's all the virtual connection in the world, but that's the check. They're trying this. It's almost an old play that they can't get away with anymore, because they can't really isolate people. They can have huge isolating effects, and they've gotten away with it to the extent that they have for a year. But why do they have to pull back to the second phase right now? And I've said this, like, there's a counter narrative to, oh, well, Texas and Louisiana lifted their mask mandates. No, it's like their governments were no longer capable of maintaining credibility while enforcing them, and had to cede that ground the same way they've ceded ground in the drug war and basically had to give up cannabis criminalization in most of the United States at this point. Like, and why? To protect the central function of their racket. You know, it's a criminal organization that will adapt to the times, but still the core of their racket is the central banks. And the crazy thing is we're living in an era, big sidebar here, right, where that's about to go away too. Okay, see a lot of good comments on screen here. Jillian Gribble, that man knew his rights. You need a warrant if you have proof of someone doing something illegal. Yeah, but now coronavirus gives you an excuse, you know, and just because you always wanted to be an asshole, now that you have the excuse to be an asshole, doesn't mean it's any less of a problem you being an asshole. So still don't be an asshole, but and like this brings out the Ken and Karen in everybody who was just waiting for that excuse. All right, myhighplains.com, executive order blocks government mandated vaccine passports issued in Texas. Complicated story here, right? Governor Greg Abbott has issued an executive order prohibiting state agencies and political subdivisions from creating vaccine passports. So this is political pandering, right? On Greg Abbott's part. There's not actually, you know, and I don't want to say this isn't a real thing, or that, oh, people talking about vaccine passports are silly and exaggerating the threat. No, I'm not saying that at all. But I'm saying that they floated that idea. They try to get away with that, right? They put out the possibility of vaccine passports, and when there's a lot of filtering of the news we do with Adam versus the Man to filter out a lot of the drama, the distraction, the test bubbles, and things like that. And I think a lot of the talk about vaccine passports was just that. Let's talk about vaccine passports. And if everybody's down for it, it's like that creepy guy at the bar that I look like now with this hair. Like, it's, you know, hey, baby, well, I was just joking about that, but, you know, like, we talk about it, right? You know, so there's that. The government is always doing that, though. They're always testing the waters to see what they can get away with. And I think that was the case with vaccine passports. So this particular story of Governor Abbott in Texas, Governor Abbott in Texas pushing back, saying, "Oh, he's preemptively pushing back." It's kind of bullshit, but there is this desire, and so he is representing the will of the people, you know, resisting the will of people, you know, higher in the authority structure than him as governor, who want to see if vaccine passports can be a thing. And this is allowed to happen in this kind of independent system where these elements interact. It's not like Greg Abbott is opposing the central banks because he's opposing vaccine passports in Texas. This is a part of the whole, you know, livestock management program of government. The ranchers have to work together and cooperate. And if one of them wants to work the cows harder and the other one says, hey, look, I'm working these cows a little less hard and I'm getting more milk out of them, the other ones aren't gonna go, well, oh, we have to shoot you. No, they all want to work together and keep milking us as taxpayers, right? Hoot Johnson, they could be actual Nazis. Operation Paperclip 2 generations later. All right. Black Hills Fox, fully vaccinated people can travel safely again, CDC says. So again, this is not, oh, CDC is being nice and backing off and look what we've accomplished with the vaccine. It's like, no, the lie of, well, this vaccine is so, like, at some point they had to do the calculus with, well, which do we make more money from? You know, if we say that the vaccine doesn't make it okay for you to travel and not wear a mask, will people buy the vaccine? Do we make more money from imposing those restrictions or selling vaccines from now on? And it looks like let's sell vaccines from now on is winning. And that's a good thing, especially for those of us who at some point would just be like, yeah, we're going to opt out and you can get the vaccine and you take that risk and I'll take this risk. So but eventually, this is where this is going. The expectation of quality of life, of freedom of commerce, freedom of travel, they can't take that. So again, the headline really says it all. Fully vaccinated people can travel safely again, according to the CDC. But no, you still got to wear a mask at the airport. But again, this is why, actually, I don't think there is going to be a vaccine passport as a major thing. Now, there will be places there, say there's no, Adam, how can you say there's no vaccine passport? There's already this required for, yeah, okay. There will be limited requirements for places where, in order to be on a certain plane, perhaps, or to be in a, I don't think that's likely, but to be like in a private plane, or to be in a certain facility, that they might require something. But in terms of a widespread, broadly applicable, you need a vaccine passport, like to travel around the United States, or in addition to a normal passport to travel internationally. Yeah, I say highly, highly unlikely. Wall Street Journal with our next headline revealing another dark side of this cloud, still hanging over everything, yet to fully dissipate. COVID-19 shut schools across Latin America and children join gangs. There's a beautiful unintended consequences headline for you. Teenagers recruited by a cocaine trafficking rebel group lost their lives when Colombia's military bombed the jungle camp where they were hiding. Holy shit. Yeah. Puerto Cachicamo, Colombia, the pandemic closed the only school in this remote hamlet, long a stronghold for Marxist guerrillas. With no internet connection for virtual classes, 16-year-old Dana Montilla told her family she was leaving to find work, but instead, authorities said she joined a narco-trafficking rebel group. Last month, Colombia's military bombarded the group's jump camp, killing Dana, another underage girl, and 10 others. Residents here said her death underscored a grim reality. Armed gangs have found fresh recruits from an ample pool of youths who, like Dana, have been out of school because of the coronavirus pandemic. And it makes us grateful to live in the United States, where our kids only have to deal with anxiety and drug abuse and depression and teen suicide, whereas in other countries that are more victims of the American empire rather than the seat of it, which makes us just a different kind of victim, of course. No schools means armed gangs instead. And I'm sure we're going to see some version of this in the full accounting of COVID in the United States as well. How many children in America were driven to things far worse than homeschool, let's just say. The Wall Street Journal. Now, this is a seemingly unrelated headline. The new shortage. Ketchup can't catch up. Now, here in Lexington, they're having a food shortage right now. A food shortage in America in 2021 is not that bad. It means that you go to, where did we go first? Carl's Jr. first. And the line was around the block, and we were like, we're not waiting here. And then we went to Sonic. No, it was Wendy's first? One of those. And then we went to Sonic. And Sonic had a big cardboard sign out front and said they're out of like half their menu items. Brutal, right? I can only get half as fat as I was planning on it. But then we went to a gas station, because that's where the real, and I've said this in all seriousness, the real health food revolution is not at Whole Foods, it's at the corner store, it's at the gas station. And it's happening where now, I mean, first it was not just candy and like, it went from gas and candy and sodas and gum and cigarettes to, well, now you have every drink you could possibly want, right? They got milk and fruit juice. They got soda water and protein drinks. They got, but first it was just adding granola bars to the mix, granola bars and protein bars. And now you can get fresh fruit at gas stations and sandwiches, and there's just an expectation of higher quality food. And I remember this has changed in my lifetime. I'm 39, and when I was in college, I did a lot of driving cross country, and I would feel gross. Like, no, like I can't eat at a gas station. I'm going to a grocery store. I'm going to get a bag of food, and I'm going to carry it with me. And and now, like, you can go to gas stations all over the country and not feel gross eating there. At least. That's not like you can get a decent, healthy meal compared to 20 years ago when it really was much more limited. And then the next day we went to Starbucks, And it was the same thing at Starbucks. Like, and Starbucks sells a lot of food. I think this is kind of underrated. And I say this is like, I went to Starbucks for the first time this week, and I was like, well, they have food too. Like, think about Starbucks, they don't just sell coffee. They're a mini cafe that's centered around coffee, right? And they sell a lot of food. Empty. I'm not paying no $5 for a gallon of milk and me at the gas station. Yeah, okay, sure. But here it is, the Wall Street Journal, news shortage, ketchup can't catch up. The pandemic turned restaurants into takeout specialists, boosting demand for the condiment. Everyone out there is grabbing for ketchup, and that was it. So after enduring a year of closures, employee safety fears and stop opening, many American restaurants are now facing a nationwide ketchup shortage. Restaurants are trying to secure the tabletop staple after COVID-19 upended the condiment world order. Managers are using, condiment world order. This is the Wall Street Journal talking. Man, that wasn't me. That's in the article. Managers are using generic versions, pouring out bulk ketchup into individual cups and hitting the aisles of Costco for substitutes. We've been hunting high and low, said Chris Fusetier, owner of Denver-based Blake Street Tavern, who has struggled to keep ketchup in stock for much of this year. The pandemic turned many sit-down restaurants into takeout specialists, making individual ketchup packets. The problem with this is, I don't think that Americans are really consuming that much more ketchup altogether than before, right? Everybody's got a drawer in their kitchen now with all their leftover. Because every time, do we have ketchup packets? Just ask them to include ketchup packets. Okay, put it in the order. Include ketchup. And this is kind of what everybody's got.
It could be engraved in the DNA. Ketchup came out in the Great Depression to hide the taste of raw meat. Maybe we are consuming a lot more ketchup too, but I guarantee there's been a huge shift in ketchup just going into people's kitchen drawers. But yeah, just interesting pandemic surge in ketchup consumption. Here it is. The ketchup conundrum strikes at a cornerstone of American diets. The tomato spread is the most consumed table sauce at U.S. restaurants, with around 300,000 tons sold to food service last year, according to research from Euromonitor. Even more is eaten at home, and the pandemic helped push retail ketchup sales in the U.S. over $1 billion in 2020, around 15% higher than 2019. Kraft Heinz Company, by the way, you want to get conspiracy? Skull and Bones, John Kerry, Teresa Heinz Kerry. Someone's got money in the ketchup industry. Yeah, Kraft Heinz Company is ketchup's king, with the research firm saying Heinz holds nearly 70% of the U.S. retail market for the condiment. The more than 150-year-old brand wasn't prepared for the pandemic. All right, Craig, hey, man, you got any weed? No, but I got ketchup. Yeah, there we go. Another resistance story from Stanford Advocate, Washington Post. A Florida bar owner didn't get in trouble for banning masks, but a strip show landed him in jail. But since September, Gary Kirby has banned masks and social distancing at his bar on Florida's Space Coast, refusing to close shop or adopt most restrictions as the coronavirus pandemic continued to rage. Sounded appropriate.
That's how the Washington Post wants you to read that. He hosted a cake party for Halloween and turkey bowling for Thanksgiving at Westside Sports Bar and Lounge, in addition to playing football games on weekends. To mark the one-year anniversary of the state's first quarantine rules, he planned an anti-lockdown party for St. Patrick's Day. But it wasn't until 2 weeks later when two police officers went undercover at the bar to watch a male review allegedly including lap dances, nudity, exposed male genitalia, and other violations of the city's adult entertainment code that the bar faced any legal repercussions. Early on Friday morning, police in West Melbourne, Florida, arrested Kirby, Westside's 31-year-old owner, and charged him with knowingly operating the strip show without a license, according to an arrest affidavit. Kirby, though, claims the whole case is actually blowback against his no-mask policy. You know, I actually want to compare this to something sort of more immediately relevant in real life here with our friend Ginny in Lexington, running two head shops where she's politically active and challenges. And now in terms of shop compliance, she is, she is compliant with the
the letter of the law and legal mask policy. I'll just say that because I don't want to incur any other risks for her. But obviously, she's not a bitch about enforcing it with anybody. She's very kind and accommodating to everybody's preferences, including government's preferences to screw her over every chance they get. Which in her case is, with a lot of taxes, she has to be much more careful following the letter of the law of taxation. And it's sort of like, well, most businesses get to, cheat on their taxes one way or another. And if they face consequences, can say, oh, whoops, it was a mistake, right? And they're fine. But not if you're politically active. And it's sort of like, is there an extra tax for being politically active or a discount for compliance? Either way, it's fucked up. And that's true with mask policy like never before now as well. So PTSDjournal.com to get to something serious here. And we really need to wrap up our COVID block and get to some other headlines. And then we got a lot of weed to smoke to end out the show today. But PTSDjournal.com, 11 negative effects of lack of socializing. And I'll just put this here, since I missed Mental Health Monday yesterday, and it sounds like a lot of people did too. I want to point this out again. Links in our notes at t.me/Adam versus the man. But hey, for anybody dealing with PTSD and realizing that, hey, now get out. There's no reason. Like, and I've said this from the beginning. Like, maintain your connections if you can. But when everybody else is scared, it's a little harder, right? But to be aware and to go out, and I think right now, perhaps in a way, getting to redesign our lives from the ground up is a good thing. Maybe another silver lining. It's like I say with homesteading. It's about designing your life from the ground up, taking charge of every aspect of your life and escaping the expectations or low expectations of others. So I just going on with this real quick. 11 ways lack of socialization hurts your mind and body. So something to be aware of, especially now is shit, it's almost like this is cliche. We're a year plus into this, really. But yeah, here we are, 11 ways. Poor self-esteem, depression, loss of reality, increased tumor risk, body chills, decreased ability to learn, decreased sense of empathy, inflammation, shorter lifespan, increased risk of dementia, reduced resilience. If you experience any of that in any way that seems like an increase over your baseline right now, go talk to people, go socialize, go get a back rub. Massage parlors are open, the real ones and the happy ending ones. But go, get some human touch in your life, have some hugs. And if that doesn't work, drink some fucking water because you're probably dehydrated. Another friendly health reminder. And just finally, I think this is closing out our COVID block today. With 100%, this is from CBS Local DFW, that's Dallas Fort Worth. With 100% capacity allowed, Rangers see packed stands for home opener at Globe Life Field. Got this from Drudge with the preface, shocker, packed stands. Yeah, no, fuck you. As many as 40,000 fans were inside Globe Life Field in Arlington Monday. Still got to have that corporate name in there. Globe Life Field in Arlington Monday afternoon for the Texas Rangers home opener. The full capacity crowd is one of the first since the COVID-19 pandemic began more than a year ago. And I'll say, a little silver lining for me, that's made me appreciate the value of even professional sports, of bringing people together to cheer in crowds in person, like at concerts, and having something to cheer for, and just getting that effect of socialization and being around other humans. So positive, so valuable. And yeah, we do it a lot of fucked up, commercialized, dare I say, statist ways through your home team in their government-sponsored stadium, rather than going and rooting for your kids or college or playing sports yourself. But the community aspect of it that has been robbed from us will not be kept from us. And with that, I'll take some more COVID vitamins, and we'll say that's our COVID block for today, fully contained here on Adam versus the Man. All right, we're going to breeze through a grab bag here, get back to Ed and your comments, and Joey here for our drug war block to end the show in just a few minutes. RollingStone.com. what YouTube's TikTok style shorts means for the music business. Short form video is the foot in the door. Now you have to stay in the party, says YouTube head of global music Lior Cohen about the company's new shorts feature. 6 months after first launching in India, YouTube is bringing the beta for shorts, its TikTok style vertical video format, to the US, the company announced on Thursday. This drops yet another competitor into the Western music market's increasingly crowded short-form video space, albeit one whose relevance to the music industry has already been established. YouTube global head of music, Lior Cohen, who built up decades of industry influence himself while at Def Jam, Warner Music, and 300 Entertainment, tells Rolling Stone that YouTube decided to enter the short-form video space because it had brought discovery and opportunities for artists to levels that we've never seen before, though the format itself is not new. And there are a lot of positive developments in this, in terms of destroying the unjustified centralized power of the music industry. And a big part of this is just that TikTok allowed a lot of remixes, and there was sort of and correct me if I'm wrong here, but it was sort of a way. It was an opening up with access with intellectual property in a new format, right? Whether it was allowed or not, right? But this is the sort of slow death of intellectual property as a racket by the internet through just making information free and available. And so what this represents, YouTube's desperate attempt at competing with TikTok with shorts. It could fall flat on its face. It could be another no. It doesn't work. It's off brand. You have to have a separate thing for this. You could acquire TikTok. Your Alphabet, Google, after all. You could just buy it. Everything's got a price, and you pretty much have access to the money printing machines. So why not just acquire TikTok? But no, they're trying to do their own thing under YouTube. Is it going to work or not? I don't know. I've seen a lot of these where I'm like really skeptical. I'm like, haha, you're trying to imitate that, not going to work, right? Like Facebook tried to imitate Snapchat with Messenger, right? With snaps and stories, and then Instagram had stories as well, and those features are there still, but they didn't kill the other platforms. But this is sort of the conglomerization of social media, and I wish Facebook was just owned, driven, led by someone with some appreciation for the internet moving humanity forward rather than just enriching himself. I mean, Mark Zuckerberg had the potential to do so much good with Facebook, even in its ability to conglomerize, but to make it a free speech platform for starters, but to make it open source, make it more, rather than plug and play into our store, plug and play into the public API and be able to code it however you want, code it. But no, of course not. That's not what we get in today's corporate reality. So what happens with this? I don't know. I don't really care. It is a positive sign of some trends that I like, of this sort of democratization or broadening of the market for music. You've been trolled. I looked at some concerts here in Phoenix at the Marquee Theater. They have pods, PODs. You have to buy an entire pod to see the show. They want $400 for Buckcherry. Who the fuck pays $400 for Buckcherry? I mean, I would if I had money to burn. And
not on Buckcherry.
I like Buckcherry.
$100.
Well, it's a pod. No. It's not for just you. It's like you could bring. I don't know. What is it? How many? You've been trolled. You say how many in a pod? Minimum for 3 people per pod was 400. But I guess if you own the pod, you can put as many as you want.
Well, that's
so. Yeah, I mean, it's for a party. It's, you get a party pod at a concert. I mean, I'm like, yeah, like this is the future of music and crowds, right? Like, but Ranger Stadium is packed. They're not going to be able to sell concerts with pods. Like, that's not, no. You can cram. Can you cram? Okay, so someone's asking, can you get 10? How many can you cram in a pod? But it's sort of like at a baseball stadium too. You get your private boxes. Okay, well, if you're in your box with your family unit, you take off your mask. You take off your bubble suit. That's for the plebes outside in the crowd. But I don't think they're. It's gonna. But again, if they try to do this, if they try to make this another smash and grab phase of medical tyranny, and it comes with a new virus that's way more deadly, they kind of shot themselves in the foot. They might be going, shit. I wish we started with COVID 1980, whatever. No, that's silly. But yeah, COVID 1984. No, I wish we had, because it's the year, but like, we should have had we should have waited till COVID 23, and then it would be the really deadly one, and then with the smash and grab would have been that much more intense because we could have made the forced unemployment crisis. Well, they could have made it last years, hypothetically, right? I mean, part of like this virus hoax still only has a limit to like how bad could it be, how long could they make it last, and I'm still surprised that they. I mean, we're still in a forced unemployment crisis in some limited ways, but it's pretty limited at this point. Most people are able to go back to work. Most jobs are back, and it's been kind of phased back in over the past few years. Where at first it was, I remember we're not debating is it essential or not anymore, right? But we were for a while. That phase, if they had a virus that was literally dead, like it made boils come out of your forehead, a week into it, and made you cough blood and like actually killed 10% of people who got it instead of 0.1% of people who got it or whatever it was, right? Then they could have made it last 5-10 years, hypothetically, right? Scary possibility. But now, even if that happened, even if we get one that is that level more deadly, like what people think Ebola could be from the movies, right? Or like some movie style, like it's the 28 days later virus. Does everybody know what that is? Like the one corny zombie movie I wanted to watch because it was more science fiction than zombie silliness, right? But yeah, it's like a more horror film. 28 days later, I don't know if I would still recommend it. Probably not, but it's a fun thought exercise of a virus that causes rage dementia, right? Is that a fair summary? That's the zombie science fiction of 28 days later. And then they have 28 weeks later. I think I saw that there was a sequel when it came out. That they could sort of bully us into that. All right, I got to get back to the headline. Wall Street Journal: China creates its own digital currency, a first for major economy. A cyber yuan stands to give Beijing power to track spending in real time, plus money that isn't linked to the dollar-dominated global financial system. Not going to get into that now, but I'm sure we'll have more stories as it becomes more relevant. MilitaryTimes.com. I want to just poke a hole in the story. STI, socially, sexually transmitted infections increasing in the military. And I kind of wanted to like gloat and make fun of the military at the same time. So that's why I'm sharing the story. Sexually transmitted infections increasing in the military. I could rewrite this headline as people smart enough to avoid STDs are now smart enough to avoid military service as well. Forbes.com, revenge of the Winklevi. After losing an epic battle with Mark Zuckerberg over ownership of Facebook and being shunned in Silicon Valley, Cameron and Tyler Winklevoss are back, this time as budding Bitcoin billionaires at the center of the future of money, the creative economy, and quite possibly a new operating model for big tech itself. This is a story I'm going to come back and read. Associated Press, AP, News.com, Yellen calls for minimum global corporate income tax. And this was shared from Drudge as just global tax. Yeah, no, corporate income tax, which is still, I mean, I'm not saying, oh, well, that makes it okay, but it's just more manipulation if you're at that level of being a global corporation. But one way or another, this is going to, if I don't share a lot of stories like this because I think this is a test balloon, right? Yeah. Let's talk about a global corporate income tax and see what we can get away with. And I think because this makes sense. They start with corporate. They're not going to start with a global human income tax. We're like, to be a human on Earth, you must pay fealty to the United Nations. And if we allow you to exist as a government on this planet, we will force you to collect this tax from any humans residing in your territory. No, like they're not. But can we get every government registered corporation to have to pay a global tax on top of what they're paying right now if they get some kickbacks from it or it furthers the bankers' agenda? Absolutely. So maybe we'll see more of that. Mediaite has a scary story with our friend, intrepid independent journalist Glenn Greenwald. Glenn Greenwald bound and robbed at gunpoint in horrifying, violent home invasion Journalist Glenn Greenwald revealed that he was robbed at gunpoint by a group of 5 men in a terrifying home invasion last month. Greenwald told the story in an essay that addressed news of another home invasion in Oakland, which a family was tied up, beaten, and threatened with death and robbed by a group of armed men. He revealed that he faced a similar attack on March 5 at a house on a farm near Rio de Janeiro that his family has been renting during the pandemic. At the time of the invasion, Greenwald was at the farm, which he described as isolated, along with an off-duty cop hired to provide security. His family, the husband and 2 kids, was in Rio. At around 9:30 p.m., Greenwald heard his dogs barking more than usual. When he went outside to see why 3 men wearing full black face masks descended on me, all pointing guns at me. Yeah. Yep. Blind justice. Joining the military is like volunteering to rape and pillage and simultaneously volunteering to be raped and pillaged. Yeah, well said. So good luck to our friend Glenn Greenwald dealing with the fallout from that. Time.com with a fun story. I should probably have saved this one for Friday. Maybe I should come back to it. Electric cars can sound like anything. That's a huge opportunity to craft the soundscape of the future. Got a cool image of cars playing notes. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to come back. I'm going to save that one. We're going to come back to that on Friday. Bloomberg opinion, politics and policy. U.S.-China Cold War will have more than 2 sides. Countries aren't going to fall neatly into opposing blocks this time any more than they did the last. Long story on sort of really cool geopolitical analysis again. Refer you to the notes if you want to get in that. Follow up on the Suez Canal blog from BBC.com, Marwa El Saladar. I'm pretty sure it's somewhere near the appropriate Arabic pronunciation. Marwa El Saladar. I was blamed for blocking the Suez Canal. Yeah. Last month, Marwa El Saladar noticed something strange. News had broken about a huge container ship, the Ever Given, that had become wedged across the Suez Canal, bringing one of the world's major shipping routes to a halt. But as she checked her phone, online rumors were saying she was to blame. I was shocked, she said. Said Miss El Saladar, Egypt's first female ship's captain at the time of the Suez blockage. She was working as a first mate in command of the Ida 4, hundreds of miles away in Alexandria. Yeah. These rumors largely spurred by screenshots with a fake news headline, supposedly published by Arab News, which said she was involved in the incident. The doctored image appears to be from a genuine Arab news story released on 22 March, which profiles her success as Egypt's first female ship captain. Oh, internet. Oh, internet. Oh, Arab misogyny. How we laugh at your growing irrelevance. ScienceAlert.com. Parental burnout in the U.S. is among the highest in the world, and we may know why. I actually really wanted to come back and do a discussion segment on this, but we don't have time today. But it is an interesting story if you want to get into it. Nobody ever said parenting was easy, but depending on circumstances, some people can find it much harder than others. And it's sort of like parental burnout, exhausted parents becoming overwhelmed by their role as primary carers, potentially leading to emotional distance from their children, parental ineffectiveness, neglect, and worse in some cases. But where does this phenomenon come from? Shitty parents. Duh. No, but there's a lot of social pressures, a lot of things where, as much as being a parent is subsidized because the powers that be want you to keep churning out mouth-breathing taxpayer, obedient wage slave cogs in the machine, they don't want you to be a good enough parent to raise children with love and creativity who will see their way out of that predestined future laid out for them. No, they want you to be ineffective parents. They want things to be hard for you, at least in that sense. They want you to keep at least sending your kids to government-run schools, teaching that kind of obedience. And big silver lining of the pandemic is that whole paradigm is being challenged. Finally, before we get to the drug war updates, MSN.com, the Trump campaign reportedly cheated donors who thought they were making a one-time contribution, collecting recurring donations. Whoops. Oh, you didn't check that box? Well, we checked it for you. That $1,000 donation, you didn't want that to be a monthly recurring donation? Whoops. The Trump 2020 campaign reportedly duped supporters into making recurring donations without their consent to donors, including cancer patients who intended to make a one-time contribution ended up making more. I hate that kind of remote. Oh, but including cancer patients. Yeah, they can be suckers too. According to New York Times, donations were automatically set to repeat when supporters got to the final stages of contributing. Yep, yep, yep. All right, moving on to better things. But this is the drug war segment today does not start with better news, so to speak. But it's funny because I this is like the 5th time I've referenced the show Narcos on Adam versus the Man in the last 3 weeks
Good show.
because I've been watching. I'm on. So it was Narcos season 1 and 2, and it was the Medellin cartel and Pablo Escobar, and then season 2 was focused on the Cali cartel. So these are like historical dramatized documentaries. So they're really fun to watch, but it's also educational and telling you a story. And if you I'm actually improving my Spanish from it because my theory in watching this is that they took bilingual actors. Like the script was originally written out all in English and in vernacular so that the subtitles could be in English, or they did it the other way and they just translated the English subtitles into English vernacular. But that they let the actors speak in a colloquial dialogue, and I think they're even accurate with their differences between the Colombian Spanish and the Mexican Spanish, at least in the colloquialisms and the insults and the vulgarities. And even that is somewhat of the time. I mean, if you did a movie about America, and it was people using street talk from the 70s or 80s, like when this is all taking place, the curse words would be different. The slang terms would be different. Certainly around drugs where you're using, there's an inherent motivation to use slang to avoid language that may be incriminating. So I see this headline, I'm like, that's still a thing. And I had to check the date on this story. This is from Reuters, March 30, 2021. Yeah, this was last week. Exclusive U.S. investigations into cartels paralyzed by standoff with Mexico. Yeah, this kind of payoff and bribe, and at the highest level, it's still a thing, this manipulation. Because when you make something illegal, you create a money fountain for anybody who's willing to take the risk of touching it. So the story goes, U.S. efforts to battle powerful drug cartels from inside Mexico have ground to a halt since January. As strained relations between the two countries have frozen attempts to corral drug kingpins, according to current and former senior officials in both nations. And you read the story, you go, fuck, it's Narcos. It's like, what? It's still a thing, and it's really relevant. And even today, when cannabis is, we're kind of ending the war on cannabis as part of the drug war, there's still a huge amount of money around the illegal side of, well, cocaine and MDMA and heroin. Well, what are the big ones? It's cocaine. Cocaine is the big one after cannabis, right? And then I think for illicit, heroin, mushrooms. James Taller's here. James, come on in. Yes, come in. We're broadcasting live. We're about to wrap up the show. Let's bring co-host comment Ed Vallejo on screen, and Jim, if you want to join us for the last few minutes of the show. We'll wrap this up together. One of our hosts here. Oh, it's moonshine that will have to be consumed pre-flight today. But please come on, James. I know we're doing this like remote style in front of a cell phone, but you can squeeze into the shot here. We're gonna pass this joint around with G.I. Mary Jane and wrap up with some really good drug warnings. James, lean in and at least wave and say hi. James Taller of the Libertarian Party of Kentucky, and of course G.I. Mary Jane traveling with us. But Politico has this headline, next one, Schumer, and Joey and I were talking about this yesterday. What can we predict for federal, decrim with cannabis? And she's been cannabis activist behind the scenes line is sometime before
July 4th.
There's going to be
some sort of movement with legalization, and that's all I know. And I don't know. I feel like I've heard that before. I mean, that could be anything from simple decriminalization on a national level. It could be access to the federal banking market. And that's a big thing that's in the House right now, is just allowing these states that have legal cannabis to have access to regular banking like any other business.
So what did I say? It could be for like babyest of baby steps at the federal level. I mean, not even full descheduling, but it could be as low key. But
again, and there was hope for this with the Obama administration, but given how far we've come in the 12 years since Obama was elected or took office, I think that we're at another spot with public paradigm understanding, with state by state decrim and even local legalization and everything else. I'm optimistic. I think that we're going to get at least a fundamental decrim or descheduling of cannabis in the next 4 years at the federal level. I hope that's a safe prediction. Ed?
No, I don't care if they decriminalize it. I don't care if they generalize it. I don't care what they do about it, as long as they take it off of the federal firearm purchase form.
I think that's one of the last things we'll see, to be honest with you.
And that is a form of drug discrimination, because they don't ask. You could be fucked up on moonshine and not able to see straight, and that doesn't affect your ability to legally own, or well, it does carry in some ways, right? But cannabis.
No. That one's going to make you go out and like shoot up schools or there's not even anything connecting cannabis and gun violence for them to include that outside of the fact that it's federally illegal. That's the only thing.
I tried to tell people when this started to come up, I said, if you get a marijuana card, you will be giving away your federal firearm right. Okay?
Yeah.
Because if you have that card and they know you have the card, it says on the form, are you addicted to this? If you say no, you're lying on a federal form and they'll put you in a cage.
It puts you in a corner where, yeah, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. You can say, hey, I have my HIPAA rights. I'm not going to tell you. Federal government says you're not protected under HIPAA, even if you think you are. And yeah, now you're in this double jeopardy situation where you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't.
Well,
this is why the audience does not see me partake on camera. Because if I partake on camera, the man can use that as proof that I lied on a federal form somewhere.
I used to do both, though. Before I was a felon for the shotgun thing, I would smoke a bong in studio with guns on the table when we lived in Virginia. And I don't know. Maybe that's why I don't get to do that anymore until Gardenia is truly legally sovereign. But Ed, before we get to the end of the show here and bring Jim up to do our promos, what do you have for our comment contest?
Daniel Chiatis. He was very much the clear winner of today. He said he had to leave early because he had to go and meet with the group that was going to choose the candidate they were going to have to run in their area. I asked him for his email address in case he won, but he didn't leave it. He took off. So, Daniel, you're out there, or you come back, man. You're the winner for today. From what I could see from his story, he was pretty well stomped on by the man, and he ranted and ranted and ranted about it. And he was the only one that really was in the contest, but he was
all right.
He was stepped on by the boot.
I hope he tunes in again and knows that we don't need his email. He can email Jim at thefreedomline.com and get our producer Jim, who will now, unless Ed, you have any closing thoughts today?
Basic closing thought is, thank you so very much for giving me this opportunity to speak with the people, because the more people that can hear my words, the better off this world are going to be.
Cheers. Absolutely. So to executive producer Jim, take us home, please, with the promos.
Okay, what's going on? Hi, Gia, Mary Jane. How's it going?
What's going
Oh,
on?
wait. Hey, you know what? I know we don't have time to get into this, but I have to tease ahead the part that we're going to pick apart tomorrow for our cannabis drug war segment. There's still fear mongering about this after Schumer saying Senate will act on marijuana legalization with or without Biden. We have the negative effects versus driving impairment versus the actual cancer risk for people who smoke cigarettes. They're trying to scare us by saying that, we still don't want to encourage cannabis use because it could increase your chance of getting lung cancer by 7%. You know what it is for cigarettes? 15 to 30 times. That's 1,500 to 3,000% more compared to 7% versus 1,500 to 3,000. Do I need to do that with the voice a couple more times? To just do we need to we need the whiteboard and draw this like to scale? Ugh. But yeah, so I saw this. I had to look it up. We're out of time today, but we're gonna come back to this with our next cannabis segment. Maybe we'll save that one also for Good News Friday. Got a lot
Maybe
of.
we should just redo the whole cannabis segment tomorrow when we have a little bit more time because it's worth getting into. But if you want to be part of the post-show discussion on the public channel, go to Adam versus the Man, t.me/Adam versus the Man. That'll lead you to the Telegram Messenger app, and that link will connect you to the public channel that everybody's welcome to. But if you want to be cool like the winner of today's contest, go ahead and get yourself onto the website adamversusman.com. You can just buy your way through access through Patreon. $10 a month gets you access to the private producers club chat in Telegram, so you can be part of both of them. It's very cool. It's the best way to get involved. After you do that, go back to adamversusman.com and do all the things we've heard me tell you what to do. Check out the shop, check out the Cigar Federation, use the promo code. Like I said, do all the things, and then go to Instagram at the Garden of Freedom. Check out the new pictures that he's got going that are awesome of the wind turbine that they just put up there. Check that out on Instagram at the Garden of Freedom. Check out the video of them putting it up and enjoy. Oh,
Doesn't that it really does legit look like, and we didn't plan it this way, just naturally. A group of dudes doing that. It looks like the flag raising at Iwo Jima. Like
the angle and everything, and you had the sun behind it. And I'd like to give a good quality cameraman note. As a cameraman myself, I like to taking videos. I noticed them drop the angle to get it a certain angle. They went down to get the sun up. Good job. I can appreciate your video skills, and I wanted them to be recognized.
Jim, you got some drone pilot competition from Kaler Nygaard as well, so hopefully we'll have that footage with the general video of the turbine installation here shortly. But man, I see if you're in the producers club, you got to tell Jim to get back up here to the Garden. Well, I should say here because we're in Lexington, Kentucky.
Yeah.
To get back up to Gardenia to bring you more of that behind the scenes footage, because that was really a fun part of what Jim was doing up there, and we missed that. So with that, we have some actual good news in history we can't avoid today, even though we're a little bit over time, because it is just way too good. It was 125 years ago today. The first Olympic Games of the modern era opened in Athens 1,500 years after the original games were banned by the Roman emperor. But that is really insignificant compared to what happened on this day in 1722, when Peter the Great repealed his tax levied on men who wore beards, which was meant to encourage the beardless fashions of France, but infuriated Russians who had always cherished long beards as sacred and preserved them with much care. And on this day in 1789, the United States Congress convened in New York to begin its first regular session. That was actually under the coup of the illegal Congress, the illegal Constitution of 1789, as opposed to the Article. So not necessarily good news there. On this day in 1848, the Jews of Prussia were granted equality. That sounds like very good news. On this day in 1909, Matthew Henson, an African-American, and Robert Perry, another American, along with 4 Eskimo guides, reached the North Pole. Good day for discovery. On this day in remember this, think about just quick, why like we do good news in history. Part of it is just for perspective of the story of human progress. It was only 1909, just historically about 100 years ago, that getting to the North Pole was a really big deal. Like where we are today is a huge acceleration, where we have Elon Musk. We can't avoid talking about him at least every Friday. Good news, cutting edge, talking about, oh yeah, we're going to populate Mars next. Anyway, on this day in 1947, the first Tony Awards ceremony celebrated outstanding achievement in the Theatrical Arts Award, awarding trophies to actor Jose Ferrer, Ingrid Bergman, and Patricia Neal, and plays such as Brigadoon and Finian's Rainbow. On this day in 1968, Simon and Garfunkel, a folk rock duo, went to '1 on the U.S. album chart with the soundtrack to The Graduate and the hit Mrs. Robinson.
It's a great
one. And more interestingly, for historical perspective, 56 years ago today, the first commercial communications satellite, Intelsat 1, was put in geosynchronous orbit. The tiny 2-foot device, nicknamed Early Bird for the proverb, "The early bird catches the worm," was the first to provide direct and nearly instantaneous contact between Europe and North America, handling TV, telephone, and fax transmissions. And 41 years ago today, Post-it notes were introduced in the United States. And with that, peace and love, y'all. Choose happiness and be excellent to each other.